sort of saying that again, like not the starting five should sort of be a core lineup. I understand it's like maybe it's not the core for the person that's doing the playbook since they're not doing the starting five. But I mean, if you're doing the playbook, you could even maybe just like
put it in the top,
or like or put it on the top of like put it at the top of the optimal lineups. Like here's my core, put it in that box, instead.
Okay. Just a thought.
No, I mean I get what you're saying. I don't want to like keep piling because we have like
I know.
Anyways, what am I doing here? What am I doing? What am I doing? Nobody knows what I'm doing.
I don't know what you're doing.
What's going on, FA Nation? Welcome to Fantasy Line DFS NBA live stream. John Pember here with James Grande here for Wednesday's 10-game DFS NBA main slate. James, we got a big one. All the big stars are on the slate. How you feeling about it?
I'm feeling good. Lots of blowout potential here. Lots of back-to-backs. 6 teams on a back-to-back. It's definitely gets weird when all these teams are on back-to-backs. I will say that, but yeah. Seems like there is a lot of, just kind of like last night, there is a lot of chalk tonight.
Yeah, you go over to the Fantasy Alarm NBA tools, check out the ownership forecast that we have for tonight's slate. You'll see what we have projected for everybody over there. And yeah, there's some pretty high ownership guys. People that we figured, like we knew Real Nato was going to be pretty high. We know D'Anthony Melton, Kelly Oubre coming off their games yesterday. We're going to be pretty high because the sites didn't have enough time to, alter their price tags. But I mean, overall, you're right. I think we do know who the chalk is. It's just whether or not some of these games will also just stay close enough for guys to hit ceilings. Yesterday, there was a little bit of a not controversy, we'll say, but with the Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, like in the lineups, and then they were all hitting value. They just happened to be a blowout, so they only played 24, 28 minutes, didn't get you the 5, 6, 7x that we're looking for. But not that they weren't on pace. Embiid was on pace for 1.58 fantasy points per minute, I think it came out to, in 24 minutes. So, we just had to go back to it tonight. They're playing Washington again. This time they're on the road, and this time it's only a 3-point spread. So, still a spot that I like Joel Embiid, and if Redick is out, I don't know if we have that news. And
yeah, he's out.
He's officially ruled out?
Ruled out.
Yeah, then I mean, right. I think this is a spot we just go back to him. I said it yesterday. I have no problem going back to either of these guys if Redick's out of the lineup, and just hope that it doesn't turn into a blowout again because they're both in smash spots. With that Redick news, though, why don't you kick us off with some injuries?
Yeah, so as mentioned, Redick out, Furkan starting again. Landry Shamet also coming off the bench again. Just kind of put that one out there. Shout out to Steve. Do you have some tough shoes to fill tonight? Steve gave Shamet a shout out. He gave Oubre a shout out last night, and Thad Young all as one of his plays.
Yeah. Steve knows his stuff, man.
Yeah.
No problem.
So, tough shoes to fill tonight, Johnny.
We got a good rotation we can throw at you guys. So one of us steps out, we're going right back in there. So
Devin Booker officially ruled out. Rodney Hood and Larry Nance both ruled out. Darren Collison is going to be a game time decision. That just came out recently. Miles Turner we know is out. Otto Porter playing tonight. We haven't got word if there's a minutes restriction, but he will be playing. Al Horford has his minutes limit bumped slightly to 27, 28 minutes. We'll see how that goes. Luka Doncic, Dennis Smith Jr. probably currently the biggest news we're waiting on, both questionable. Nikola Mirotic, also pretty big news because he was upgraded from doubtful to questionable today. So anytime someone's upgraded is generally a good sign. I mean, we did see that with Jeremy Lamb the other day, and Jeremy Lamb was ruled out. So it's not always a sure thing that he's going to play, but it's definitely a positive sign. Eton Moore is sick, and he's injured. He's questionable. JaMychal Green is sick. He is questionable. Damari Carroll and Joe Harris both available. Kevin Huerter available. And DJ Wilson and Dante DiVincenzo are both not playing for those deep dive targets. In terms of game totals. Philly, Washington, as you mentioned, 228.5, 3.5 point spread. Philly has blown them out twice this year. Once on the road, once at home. Just going to put that out there. It's been 2 blowouts. But it is back-to-back for both. They could both just come in playing terribly. Indiana, Boston has risen from 212.5 to 215 since the Miles Turner news, which is interesting to me. More offensive of a team Indiana is with Sabonis in there, more than Miles Turner, who's a much better rim protector. Atlanta, Brooklyn, 226.5, 9-point spread. Milwaukee, Houston, 228, which is up 2.5 points. 228. Milwaukee, 1.5-point favorites on the road. Possible to fade James Harden. We're gonna say it all night. You're gonna hear it multiple times on this.
Hard to do.
Yeah. San Antonio, Memphis is the game that is just really ugly. 205. We just saw this game. It was like 196 total points, so we don't need to do it. Cleveland, New Orleans, 224.5, beautiful total, 14-point spread. No Larry Nance, no Rodney Hood. I don't know how Cleveland keeps this close, but second night of a back-to-back as well. Phoenix, Dallas, 217.5. That's down 3.5 points. I'm very intrigued if that's because Devin Booker or if that has anything to do with Luka Doncic, Dennis Smith Jr. It's still a 10-point spread, so I can't imagine if it's a 10-point spread that Dallas without Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr. is that much better than Phoenix. So that kind of tells me that they're playing. But
I wish that game was earlier so we could figure the news out.
I mean, 8:30. Hopefully we'll get the news. It's an 8:30 game. Maybe we'll get the news. Maybe we won't. Because it is a game we want to attack, to be perfectly honest. Right. Orlando, Utah, another game is okay. 207.5. We don't need to do it in Utah. 208 in Portland, Chicago. 10-point favorites is Portland at home. And the late night hammer, Jim Bowden's beloved Lakers taking on Detroit. 216, 1.5-point spread. It's a nice little late night hammer. So
it is.
Those are the 10 games. We got some really ugly totals, 14-point spread in Cleveland, New Orleans. But we're gonna get you through the cash game plays. We're gonna get you through the GPP plays.
Yeah. Before we do that, shout out to our sponsor here at Prize Picks. Tired of trying to win on big daily fantasy sites? Well, friends over at Prize Picks created the simplest and fastest daily fantasy game yet. Simply choose over or under correctly on our player's fantasy point projection to win. It's that easy. No competing against thousands of pros. No finding minimum value players to fit into your salary cap. With Prize Picks, it's you against the projections. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports simplified. So go check that out. Good game over there. Like I said, it's pretty easy. So over under. Either or. But Jane, let's kick it off at point guard. Like we said, just a lot of value here. A lot of news sort of just coming that makes this. I think everybody's gonna be spending down, but we'll look at the top. Ben Simmons had himself a good game yesterday. We love attacking Washington at the point guard position. Simmons still went for 43.5 FanDuel points, despite playing only 27 minutes. Do you have any fear of paying up and going back to him in this matchup?
I think the best part about what Simmons is doing lately is the scoring, averaging 20 points a game over his last 5, and that's obviously been like the weakest part of his games, I guess, since he's come to the NBA. I mean, he still can't shoot the ball for SHIT. We won't say the word. No, this is a PG stream.
No, it's PG-13. We're good.
PG-13. So he can't shoot. But, I mean, it's positive. Washington ranks out terribly against point guards. They're literally the worst. Them and Atlanta have been kind of teetering back and forth all year long on who's the worst, who's second worst. So I think you go back to it. Do we need to do it? No. Like you said, everyone's going to be spending down, especially on DK when you look at Raul Neto's price and Dan Melton's price. But I think it's definitely a nice contrarian option, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think he's going to play up. If you're spending up, that's where I'm going. I like Kyrie Irving too against Indiana. I know the Pacers are the number one team against point guards, but I'm thinking competitive game here. The way we've been seeing Kyrie really play this season, carrying the Celtics offense. I think there's 50-point upside there. Average over fantasy point per minute in that first matchup against the Pacers this season. But then it really comes down to the mid-tier. I think Lonzo's in a good spot here against Detroit. He reacted really well to getting called up by Luke Walton. Came back and put up 40 fantasy points. Gets a matchup that we love attacking in terms of Detroit point guards. So no problem with Ball here. As you mentioned, you get exposure to that late night hammer, the 10:30 game. So Ball is in play for me, like Bledsoe in cash games against Houston. Where are you going in this mid-tier range?
I want to like Chris Dunn because Portland's backcourt is so poor at defending, but like I just don't trust the Bulls keeping games close anymore, and it's unfortunate because it's a team that I root for. But Dunn's been really good, 36 fantasy points per game over his last 4. So I mean, you can go to that. I think it would be a game that you want to stack if you're going to play Chris Dunn. You want to play like Damian Lillard on the other side, or Yusuf Nurkic, who we'll get to, but I don't want just one-offs in this game. I think if this game does stay close, it's going to be competitive. I think, Chicago's defense isn't great. Portland's defense isn't great. It has potential to go way up over 210, but tournaments only. I don't think I want to play anyone in the mid tier. I just want to go right down to the value, to be perfectly honest. I mean, D'Anthony Melton is obviously going to be chalky again. His price tag didn't move, which is silly because Devin Booker didn't play yesterday. At least, make us think about D'Anthony Melton. Move him up to like 5K. FanDuel's been good at that all year, and they just didn't do it tonight. He's still just free. I understand. So I did the numbers. I crunched the numbers for Phoenix is 0-6 on back-to-backs this year. They've kept 3 of the games close. They've gotten blown out in 3 of them. I think Melton plays 30-plus minutes regardless of outcome. He's been a guy, he's averaging 1.6 steals per game, so I don't think the 4 was completely an outlier that we saw last night. Yeah. I think he's someone who can stuff the box score. He's averaging 1.14 fantasy points per minute with Devin Booker off the floor this year. So I love D'Anthony Melton. I hate Raul Neto's price on FanDuel. It's literally ridiculous.
Ownership is making us consider him.
I know, but I guess my thing is he's been a third-string point guard for a reason, right? He is behind Rubio, behind Exum when they're both healthy.
Yeah.
What have we seen besides a 25 fantasy point outing for Raul Neto in 29 minutes that makes us think that he's worth a near 6K price tag?
No, I agree with you. I've never really looked to roster him in the near 6K exactly. When you can go down to a guy like Jeremy Lin who started last night, right? And put up 35-plus fantasy points, I think it was. So, he's 4,400. If Lin is Lin in the starting lineup tonight again? Have they released that yet?
Kevin Huerter is active, so I'd assume Lin's coming off the bench.
So, even then, Huerter active, who knows many minutes he's going to play. We've seen Lin even have sort of a role in their offense anyways coming off the bench. Just another cheap guy who I think, again, he's putting up 25 fantasy points in 20 minutes. Nato's putting up that much and how many minutes he's playing at a much cheaper cost. So, I think it'd be interesting to sort of see where they go there.
What do you think? Okay, let's just play one hypothetical out. Okay. Dennis Smith Jr., Luka Doncic, Darren Collison are all ruled out. So now we have Jalen Brunson, J.J. Barea, and Corey Joseph all as value plays.
Collison just got ruled in.
Collison in, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr. are ruled out. Do you pivot to Barea or do you pivot to Brunson?
The last time everybody thought it was going to be Barea and Brunson went for 40.
Right.
So I think Barea maybe is a safer play, but Brunson's upside, we've seen it when given the opportunity this year. So if Brunson's the guy that ends up starting out of that group, I think you have to go with him.
I'm with you. I think he's probably the more popular option here too, right? Because he's only $3,500 on DK. And I'm not saying Barea at $4,300 is really expensive, but just based on what he did his last time he played all the minutes and the price, I think Brunson would be more popular. So probably maybe pivot to Barea in tournaments.
Okay, I can get to that. Any other point guards looking at?
Nope. Ready to move on.
All right, let's go on to shooting guard. James Harden, lock him in all your cash games. He was 90% owned, I think it was the other day, in cash games, so you just can't fade it. And he went for 60 fantasy points despite taking 3 shots in the first half. It was the craziest of matchups there, the way Harden was playing, and he still came on strong second half and hit value. So got to put him in your lineups. If you don't, you're just going to be behind everybody else pretty much if he goes off in this matchup against Milwaukee. Aside from Harden at the top, where else are you looking?
I'm going right back to the well with Bradley Beal. And Jimmy Butler's defense, sure, whatever. If you want to still think it's what it used to be, it's not. He doesn't care as much. I don't even think he cares about basketball as much, to be quite honest with you. He just cares about his extracurricular activities with his coaches, with whoever, whatever he's doing. Beal was really good last night. He played 31 minutes, 11 for 18 from the floor, 40 fantasy points for the sixth straight game. And obviously, if that game stays closer, he probably gets his 50. I have no problem using a guy with a 33% usage rate and over a fantasy point per minute with their star player off. He's the focal point of the offense. And if you think this game stays close, 3-point spread says it will, why not go right back to the well here?
No, I agree with you. I mean, like you said, if you believe the 3-point spread, knowing how involved he is, I mean, just a matchup you can definitely look to take advantage of. Still, went for 38 fantasy points in 31 minutes against them, and he's been playing, like I said, almost 40 every other game. So a good spot for him. I was asked not to mention him in chat today because I didn't want to jinx him, but I put him in the playbook. I'm going to say his name. I'm going to say Donovan Mitchell against Orlando. He has like a 36% usage rate, I think it is, when Rubio and everybody's off the floor. I just think this is a good spot for him. He's got to break out eventually. I think he's too good to be as inconsistent as he's been this year. He just went for 50 the other day against Detroit. Looking for another one of those games here against Orlando.
I mean, the shot attempts are back on the rise, too. At least 21 in 3 of his last 4 games. So we know he's a volume shooter. He kind of seems like one of those guys when somebody is out, he takes it upon himself to do more or think he has to do more. And that's kind of when all these shot attempts are coming. I like Mitchell. I think it's a good spot. Evan Fournier's not athletic enough to guard Donovan Mitchell. Plus, he's going to be playing a lot of point guard when Neto inevitably gets taken off the court because he's not a good basketball player, and he's going to be matched up against a very diminutive DJ Augustine. So right. I like Mitchell, but I probably like him less now that you mentioned him.
I know, man, the jinx. The one guy I've been all over pretty much since the beginning of the morning. And like I tell everybody, my process begins with, I just look at the slate. It's just like my literal first look. And as I go through each game, I try to see what names pop into my head here. And when I came across Atlanta Brooklyn, I immediately came to DeAngelo Russell. I thought this was a guy that could take a really good advantage of this matchup against Atlanta. They struggle against the shooting guard position. They're depleted defensively. And Russell torched them in their first meeting this year, went over 50 fantasy points, one of his best performances all season long. I'm in on DeAngelo Russell. He's in all my GPP lineups tonight. If he burns me, he burns me. But, he's just been playing really well. Also, you take away that game against Boston, they were playing down. They were down the whole game. But you look at that stretch before that, 55 against New Orleans, 42 against Memphis, 41 against Chicago. This guy's playing some of his best basketball and now gets to face the Atlanta Hawks. So give me a lot of D-Russ tonight.
Yeah, and we mentioned it going into that Boston game. He hasn't played well on back-to-backs all year long.
Right.
So it wasn't a coincidence he played bad there. The four games prior, he went over 43 fantasy points. So I'm with you. Huge pace-up spot, too, which we love for anyone. But, like, DeAngelo Russell, even when he was in the Lakers, was always pushing the tempo. So it's a really nice spot for Russell. I'm with you. I was going to ask you, let's say you have $7,600. You're on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Your last piece cash build. Do you put DeAngelo Russell? Are you comfortable using DeAngelo Russell in cash?
I think in this matchup against Atlanta at home, I'm comfortable using him in cash games.
Okay. I don't think I will ever play DeAngelo Russell in cash.
He's been a lot more consistent this year.
He has.
In years past. And I get it. I just think this matchup is I've been talking too highly of it about him being a can't miss that he's gonna just be ejected in the first 4 minutes but I just feel like this is too good of a spot for him.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. I just figured I'd ask.
Yeah, no, totally okay. Going further down, I think we played both Cleveland guards there, Burks and Clarkson. Burks being a little bit of the cheaper one has been drawing a lot more of the ownership. Clarkson has the higher, I think, actual scoring ceiling in terms of points. And now they're going to get, maybe an Alfred Payton defense, one of the two. I know Clarkson's Sexton's a point guard, but they've kind of all ball handle a lot. And we love using guards against the Pelicans' wings. So thoughts on both Cleveland guards there?
Burks has been good peripherally and on top of the scoring. So, I can't deny it, even at a 5K price tag, which is is getting up there. I think it's
still
fine,
under
but
5 on FanDuel, which is surprising.
yeah, that is
Figured they would have
surprising.
jacked him up to 7K by now. Given there's a man who hasn't played a single game in the NBA this year, priced at $6,200, and Brandon Sampson, who I had to look up to like multiple pages for somebody to figure out who this man was. So
it had to be a misprint.
Had to be. They probably must have thought he was 3,200. Equan Moore ruled out. I know he's kind of shooting guard, small forward.
And Mirotic expected to play.
Right. So, I mean, when we hit small forward, I think there's maybe some. I can't imagine they just give Mirotic minutes, like all the minutes right away. And almost pretty much nullifies sort of that position too, because it's not like you can just go back to Darius Miller now.
Right.
But maybe like Alfred Payton gets like a larger share of minutes. I don't know how you feel about that.
It does nothing for me personally. I didn't love Equan Moore before he was out, and like you said, Mirotic is likely limited. I think if anything, it takes maybe away from guys like Drew Holiday and Julius Randle for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, again, I'm curious about how many minutes he plays. He's definitely probably going to come off the bench, I think. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the lineup yet.
20 to 25 minutes.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's tough. It's going to hurt somebody. Not going to touch Anthony Davis or Drew Holiday, so we'll figure that out when we get there. But yeah, so you like both Cleveland guys there. Clarkson again. I think on FanDuel he's 5K and Burks is 4,500. So both of them I think are really good spots. Yeah, I mean all they need is 25 fantasy points for 5X, and they've been going over 30 and a crush spot here against New Orleans. So I'm a big fan of both of them tonight.
Yeah, I mean Clarkson's he's in a really good rhythm, and when scorers are in this kind of rhythm, I tend to play them, especially in tournaments. I think Malcolm Brogdon is a really nice play tonight, like all formats type of play. I mean, again, we talked about this last year, and it's happening again where he just scores 25 to like 35 fantasy points every night, and it's kind of like the Bojan effect where his price just doesn't go up. And now who's going to be guarding him? Because PJ Tucker's going to be guarding Giannis all night. So James Harden, Austin Rivers? I mean, this guy averaging 30 fantasy points over his last 4 games. I think Malcolm Brogdon in all formats is a really elite play tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I put him in the playbook today. I called him my cash game lock, but I mean, I agree with you. I think he can be in all formats. It's just steady production from him pretty much all season long. And this is someone you've talked about now for years. You know, pretty much since he's entered the league, it seems like we've been talking DFS. You've been mentioning Malcolm Brogdon, so never wavered off of him. No problem with that. Let's go down, hit some value. Mentioned already Burks, Josh Hart. You know, what he thought about him. I mean, not as much value as he had been in the past, but coming off a really big game, 50 fantasy points against Dallas. And we like attacking the backcourt here at Detroit. Where are you on Hart tonight?
Like, I don't know I think he's going to be like sneaky almost at this price tag. I mean, our projections say so too, 2% projection on both sites.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not the worst play. Again, we talked about this the other day. People aren't used to seeing Josh Hart up near 6K. But the production on, not a nightly basis, it's been fluctuating, but 35 fantasy points per game over his last 5 is pretty good. That exceeds the 6-1 and 5-9 evaluation. So he'll be sneaky in tournaments. I think he's fine. I'm not like rushing him to get into my lineups, but I don't have a problem paying that price tag for him. Just kind of with the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It's interesting. I wanted to play KCP, but then I saw Kuzma back. Because there was that revenge narrative that I always like to take advantage of. So in the back of my mind, I still have a little thing where like KCP comes off the bench, gets hot, and then like they just keep they keep Hart off the bench, on the bench rather. So, but overall, I think Hart's still pretty safe play. What other value shooting guards are you taking a look at tonight?
Both Philly guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Shamet is free, and he's free. He's being handed to us on a silver platter.
On FanDuel, so.
And is he min salary still?
He is min salary. Yeah.
So I mean, tournament they need somebody to space the floor, and this is what Steve and I said last night. Like with Redick off the floor, they need Shamet or Korkmaz at all times to be on the floor because they have no shooting. So, do I think Landry Shamet is going to go 8 for 14 from 3 again? Maybe over a 4-game span.
Right.
But he's 3-1. We're asking for literally 15 fantasy points, 15 to 17 fantasy points for 5X. I think it's worth it. And I think Korkmaz is fine for cash games as well at his evaluation. He was good last night. And you know what? If this game blows out again, he checked back in the blowout last night and got us to 6X. So, I mean, I think he's very viable in cash games, and I think Shamet is very, very solid tournament play.
Yep. All right, let's jump on over to small forward here. Giannis at the top against Houston. I mean, the DVP numbers don't rate it out well, but I mean, I still think figuring the pace of this game, the total, the back and forth nature, I think we're going to see here. I'm expecting a big game out of Giannis. It's funny to say that he was sort of a disappointment against Utah because he went for 53 when Harden and Anthony Davis both went off. But again, he's the cheapest of the three. I think if you're going to fade Harden or Davis, Giannis is the obvious play because you get the salary relief and he has the ceiling of the two. So I think Giannis, great spot here to pay up. If we're not paying up, though, the mid-tier is pretty interesting over on FanDuel. You got Brandon Ingram, TJ Warren, Kyle Anderson's there, DeMarre Carroll, Otto Porter, as we mentioned, back, no minutes limit tonight, I don't think either. Thoughts on that whole mid-group there?
Love Brandon Ingram. I love him without LeBron. It's been 2 weeks now. I've said this every night. He's been good more often than not. And you mentioned in the playbook about the stern talking to he got about how he doesn't seem like he cares, yada, yada, yada. So I like Brandon Ingram. More on FanDuel, 6'9" is definitely more reasonable than 7'5" over on DK. I think TJ Warren is fine. I looked up his numbers on back-to-backs. Hasn't been great, but just the opportunity is going to be there.
Right.
And he's averaging 31 minutes or fantasy points per game against Dallas. So, more of a cashy play. But other than that, I don't think I want to play Otto Porter at 6K. I know, he was doing okay last night, fantasy point per minute before he got hurt.
Right.
I don't think we need to do it. I think small forward personally is the worst position tonight, which is why I think Giannis has such a high projection of ownership, because it is such a bad position that a lot of people are just going to go spend up on Giannis.
Fair enough. Any value, I guess, at this? I mean, we talked about some guys that are coming back. Any value at small forward?
I like Evan Turner. Now, I don't know if he starts. Who knows? I mean, they've done a bunch of different things when Mo Harkless has been out. But the one thing I do know is when Mo Harkless doesn't play, Turner plays minutes regardless. I mean, he played 31 the other night against Houston with Harkless out, gave us 27 fantasy points. He's a little too maybe he's not he's okay on FanDuel, but 3.9 on DraftKings is too cheap. I like Evan Turner a lot for a value play. And I think he'll play 25 to 27 minutes even in a blowout. And we're looking for 3.9. I think he has a better chance of getting to value in a blowout than Damian Lillard does in a blowout from the same team. So I like Turner. I'd be comfortable with him using in cash if we found out he was starting.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, he's someone that I've never really he's not exciting. He doesn't have the greatest upside. So, he's not someone that I often have rostered, but I mean, he can also fill up the stat sheet for you. Did you mention Joe Harris coming back?
I did not. I said he was playing in when we ran down the injuries.
So I mean, 4,900 on FanDuel for Joe Harris against Atlanta. Assuming he's okay, he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. I think Harris is this Nets team in general. If you're looking for a stack, Carroll, Harris, Russell, I think it's pretty interesting to kind of use those three there against Atlanta. Yeah,
especially when you consider the Nets 10-point favorites.
Right.
That's really weird to see. And we're not going to go past small forward without mentioning Oubre, right? I mean,
no. I mean, he's part of Oubre has to be in your lineups on FanDuel, especially because he's only $200 above min price, and if he has a typical Oubre off game where Oubre chalk game, we'll call
Oubre it. Chalk is just
he's single digits. He's not going to kill you. So Oubre for sure.
He's going to be Oubre chalk.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Yesterday that we missed him somehow on the podcast, and then he goes off and has a huge game. So 48 fantasy points against Sacramento. against Dallas, who potentially be down a bunch of guys. Definitely Oubre. Jump on over to power forward, Anthony Davis at the top. Play him if you want. Matchup against Cleveland, super favorable. You obviously have to wonder about the blowout potential in this game, and that's always a concern. But even then, I feel like in blowouts, Anthony Davis still plays like 35 minutes.
Yep.
That doesn't seem to bother him. So, and he's got Tristan Thompson is pretty much his lone defender, which I'm not too really worried about there either. So, play Anthony Davis if you want. No problems. Not going to tell you not to. Put in the playbook that I think I'm finally going to play Blake Griffin tonight after weeks and weeks of talking about wanting to play and just watching him put up like 50 to 60 fantasy points on a nightly basis and banging my head against the wall. So I'm in on Blake in this matchup here against the Lakers. I think both he and Drummond are just in really good spots. Paying up, I think I'm going to go to him. John Collins we have is one of the highest projected ownership plays of the night. He gets Brooklyn. We talk a lot about centers against the Nets. Well, Atlanta sort of has a timeshare with their center position between Dedmon and Len. Collins went for 40+ in that first matchup against them, so don't hate him. Then you have Kuzma and Sabonis there at the top. Thoughts on those guys?
So I'm unsure about Kuzma after seeing him go 5 for 20 with the back. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle Blake Griffin. I'm with you tonight. Like, I think him and Drummond both have like 60-point upside tonight. Obviously, I don't think both of them go for 60, but I think that's the type of upside we're looking at from both. So I don't love Kuzma. I love Collins. You know, the one thing we worry about Collins is foul trouble.
Right.
And if he can stay out of foul trouble, which Brooklyn doesn't necessarily have any post players or, you know, with Hollis Jefferson out, no one really slashing to the basket that much. I mean, when DeMar Carroll checks in, he stands on the perimeter. When Jared Dudley's in, he stands on the perimeter. So if Collins is fouling those guys, then we're seriously in trouble. So I think he's fine. I think he's a really good play. I think LaMarcus Aldridge could be sneaky tonight. He's going to literally be like -% owned.
Right.
Because nobody wants to play that game. But he was really good in just 31 minutes against them in a blowout. You know, he's going to play more natural power forward tonight. I suspect Jakob Poeltl starts again for Rudy Gay, who's out. And we know Jaren Jackson is foul happy. If JaMychal Green doesn't play, then we're looking at like Omri Caspi, who is not going to stop LaMarcus Aldridge. So I think there's a path to LaMarcus Aldridge in tournaments, getting him at like 1% ownership. And I think he's a little too cheap. So, I mean, I prefer Collins. I prefer Sabonis, who's an elite play with, you know, every night right now with Miles Turner out. But I think a pivot off both of those guys would be going to Aldridge.
Yeah, fair enough. In the mid-tier, I talked about favorites today in the playbook. This is a guy that just is producing 30+ fantasy points pretty much now in 4 straight games. The minutes range from 24 to 28. Seems to just have a secure role. I know you probably worry about the athleticism there of Aaron Gordon against Favors, but I mean, he seems to be doing perfectly fine, and no matter what the matchup is against, he shares time with Jay Crowder. So I don't mind him. I think you can still throw him out there in lineups, just knowing, you know, having expectations that, you know, 35 fantasy points is probably the ceiling you're going to get out of him. You know, low 20s is probably the floor. Below him, Thad Young. I know you talked a lot about him. He's in the playbook. You talked about him. I think the rebounding differential that Boston has this year and where they rank is was it the 16th or something like that in defensive?
Yeah, I think it was 17th, somewhere from 17th to 19th.
Yeah. So Thad Young in a great spot there with no Miles Turner. We saw him again go for 42 against Cleveland, 32 and 33 against Toronto and Chicago. So a really strong stretch here from Thad Young. And not the first time we've seen this from him. Earlier this year, we saw him have really strong outings too. So definitely capable of taking advantage of Boston's poor rebounding in this matchup. On FanDuel, Marcus Morris is 5,100. He had 20 actual points in that first matchup against Indy. If you want to go there, he's going to be rather contrarian because everybody's going to play Josh Jackson. We have him as one of the highest owned players on the slate. Thoughts on sort of the mid to bottom tier here at power forward?
Jackson is a must, especially where they didn't raise his price like FanDuel. He's going to be super chalky. I have some interest in Harrison Barnes if we found out Doncic or Dennis Smith Jr. were out. And I'm not generally someone who likes Harrison Barnes. I think he's boring to watch. And I don't think he does a lot for us in terms of fantasy production.
Right.
But he can score the basketball. And if like Doncic, who's their best player, their best offensive player, sits out, they're going to need him. And it's against Phoenix. Barnes didn't look great against Phoenix last time, but he did give us 15 actual points, and I think that could be get an even bigger bump if Doncic were to sit out. So I think Harry B is okay. I do, by the way, like Favors, and I think there is something weird has happened where they're just like, screw it, we're just gonna play him, 25 to 28 minutes a night, and whether or not the other opposing team's power forward is athletic or not, because I mean he's producing quite well. So
yeah,
I do like Favors as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll throw out one more guy here. My boy Rashawn Holmes. Again, he's not going to play a ton of minutes, but there are nights where he just goes off. And as I mentioned in the playbook today, you're going to want him in your GPP lineups at his price tag, because when he does go off for you, he's giving you 35 fantasy points, he's giving you like 10x price. So I mean, on FanDuel, you can throw him in there, and if he doesn't do anything, then he doesn't count against you. If he goes off, then he's putting you in a really good position. He's giving you that salary relief you need to spend up elsewhere. You can double punt power forward tonight on FanDuel, go Jackson and go Holmes. Granted, I know that they're both on Phoenix, but also then go and play Giannis and Harden together or something like that, and really go stars and scrubs. And if Holmes goes for 38 at 3.8K, well, then you're sitting pretty right there. So I'll throw Holmes out there as a last power forward value option.
Yep, that's your boy. Davis Bertans, possibly, if you want to go through that excruciating pain with Rudy Gay out. I think there's a path like 25 minutes.
Fair enough. All right, over on to center. Joel Embiid's at the top. Again, I don't mind going back to him. I think it's a great spot. It's a great matchup. I like the point spread. I know you said that they've blown them out in all the games that they've played, the 2 games they've played against each other this year. In those 2 games, Embiid's averaging 42 fantasy points in 23 minutes. And what are we supposed to do with that? You just have to hope that Washington can somehow keep this game close for any amount of time, and Embiid's going to go off for like 70. So I mean, again, I have no problem paying up for Embiid in GPPs. What are your thoughts on Embiid in cash games, knowing that more than likely he's still giving you 40 fantasy points?
I mean, it bit me in the ass last night. And it's going to be really tough to pay for with Harden at the price tag he is. Yeah. But there is a lot of value at point guard. There's value at power forward, as you just mentioned. So, like, if you want to do it, you can do it. I'm not either. Thomas Bryant, I don't know how he didn't get in foul trouble last night. I really don't. Maybe he just wasn't on the floor enough to for that to come to be. But there's nobody to guard him. I know you mentioned Yamahimi as like a guy, but even Yamahimi, when Joel Embiid is in this kind of, he's just not going to be stopped. I mean, you've seen 43 fantasy points in 23 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd play him in cash tonight. But if you do it, I'm not going to be like, no, you're wrong. Like that's, he has 70 point. There's a massive ceiling that not many people on this slate have.
Yep, I agree with you. I think my cash game center is Andre Drummond tonight. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, he's my guy in the starting 5. The Lakers are going to get torched by Drummond, 27th against centers. JaVale McGee, like, thankfully we're getting JaVale McGee here. I think Drummond is still too cheap also on DK, 8.6. He's gone for 45 and 46 fantasy points the last 2 games, 3 straight double-doubles. Again, 60-point upside here. One thing I will note, I'm just going to say this, and I don't think it's a big deal, but he averages 8 less fantasy points on the road than he does at home. Shoots a better percentage.
Yep.
Just scores less, doesn't take as many shots. Just for what that's worth, it may not be worth anything.
Tristan Thompson is all of a sudden a game time decision tonight for whatever that.
So I'm going to say it, and Justin Fensterman ended the podcast or started the podcast. Some point in the podcast, he said Ante Zizic's name, and I said, let's move on. Let's move on. That's what I said. I think if Tristan Thompson sits Ante Zizic at 3.1K and min salary on FanDuel in a game that is going to be a 50-point blowout if Tristan Thompson doesn't play, is probably a strong option at 3.1K.
It's an interesting option. I don't know if we'll call it strong.
He's going to play. How many minutes? If Tristan Thompson doesn't play, how many minutes does Ante Zizic play?
I don't know. However long it takes for him to get 5 fouls by Anthony Davis. So, yeah. Zizic was a prospect that, the Celtics had drafted and played really well over in Europe, and all of these nice things came out of there, and they're all excited. But, I mean, as soon as we traded him, we're like, oh, thank God somebody bought all that. And, yeah, I mean, good luck if he's in the lineup. Maybe the minutes will be there, like you said. I honestly don't know who their backups is. Is it Channing Frye? Channing Frye is their backup center?
Channing Frye, yeah.
Yikes. So, yeah, I like Anthony Davis even more. Now that that's the news, I like him even more. I think Clint Capella is interesting, especially over on DraftKings where his price tag's at 78. Over on FanDuel, he's like over 9K. So I think Capella in this back and forth matchup, I think here, Brook Lopez isn't going to really deal with his athleticism. And we've seen Capella just really go off, ever since Chris Paul's gone down. He's averaging like over 45 fantasy points last 5 games. So Capella's strong play for me, especially on DraftKings.
Are you worried at all about Brook Lopez pulling Clint Capella out to the 3-point line?
I'm worried as opposed to like thinking he can't defend him there? Or
no, more like in terms of like peripheral rebounds and block shots because he won't be in the interior as much.
Not really. I mean, yes, I understand the point you're making there, but I feel like he's still going to get his minutes. I think he's the guy that goes and gets his stats. So I'm not overly concerned. I'm trying to check and see if they've played any recent sort of stretch bigs. Boston, I guess Al Horford gets stretched for a little bit.
Right.
24-19 in that game. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a concern. I get where you're coming from, but I still think Capella, like I said, it's just a big discount over on DraftKings. DeAndre Jordan against Phoenix. We like going against Phoenix centers. Jordan, 2 40-point games over the last 3. I think he's an option today. I think he can be in cash game play as well.
Yeah, and he's priced really fairly. The price tag in the matchup just, lock him into cash. And if like Luka Doncic doesn't play, he has an 18% usage, which obviously doesn't seem like a big number.
Right.
But this is a guy who takes like 3 shots a game, like on a normal basis. So like to see someone at 18% who takes 3 shots a game is a pretty significant number. So I think DeAndre Jordan would be viable if Doncic had in all formats.
Any other centers you're taking a look at here?
I love Nurkic. If you're, again, I think in a game stack, I think Nurkic is a really strong play. I think Marc Gasol is just too cheap on DraftKings, 6.5. I know he hasn't been great lately, but it's a guy he's averaging 38 fantasy points for the year, and we've seen him go over 50 plenty of times. And, Jakob Poeltl is So I think Gasol is a little too cheap. And then Jakob Poeltl and Ante Zizic. I'm just going to say them both because Poeltl, played 27 minutes the last time out. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great, 18 fantasy points. I think that's fine. And like on a FanDuel, like if he's like your last piece, even DraftKings, that's fine because you'll be able to fit more with Harden. And Ante Zizic, 3.1, went for 22 fantasy points and extended run the other day. So, or 2 games ago, when in late December, not the other day. So, whatever on both end, but there's not a lot of value other than them.
Fair enough. That wraps up. Any final thoughts?
No. Let's win some money.
Let's win some money. It's a good one. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later. Good luck tonight on Main Slate. James and I will be in subscriber chat to answer your questions, and lineups are coming out as soon as this ends. So we'll talk to you then.
Later, guys.